Hey Salceologists, welcome back to my channel. If you are new, my name is Angela. I am a woman in STEM and I've been in the STEM industry for over 15 years, and my channel is to empower STEM women to reach their potential. So if that sounds like your vibe, really appreciate if you would subscribe. Click that little button down there to subscribe to us. Imposter syndrome has been a highly requested topic on my channel. I wanted to make this quick video before I ran some errands today. That's why I've got my bag and my coffee here. I'm actually ready to go out. I wanted to take some time to collect my thoughts of the experiences that I've experienced in the past, and I finally think that I can talk about this from my own unique perspective. So today in my video, I'm going to talk a bit about what imposter syndrome actually is by definition, who is more likely to experience this in the STEM fields. We'll also talk a bit about what having imposter syndrome is like. So I don't want to say the word symptoms, it's not a medical condition. So I guess some of the signs to help you understand whether you are experiencing imposter syndrome or not in the workplace. Some of the causes and the reasons why people in the industry tend to feel imposter syndrome in their careers. Why imposter syndrome can be very harmful and detrimental to your career. And most importantly, how can we overcome imposter syndrome when we are experiencing it? I'll also draw on my own personal and professional experiences in the industry when I talk about these concepts. So let's go. So by definition, according to ChatGPT, imposter syndrome is a psychological pattern where individuals doubt their accomplishments and fear being exposed as a fraud despite evidence of success. It's not just an insecurity, it's persistent, internalized self-doubt that resists all logic. Basically, imposter syndrome is a psychological phenomenon that people in the industry experience where they feel like a fraud, their successes were achieved by chance, and that they don't feel good enough or feel like they don't belong. Now, if you asked me the question, who is more likely to experience imposter syndrome in a field like STEM? My answer to your question will be anyone with a pulse. Anyone with a pulse has the potential to feel imposter syndrome at some point in their career. I think there's a big misconception that there's only specific demographics that feel this and other demographics don't. It's a human experience, it's a collective experience, it's a psychological experience of just internalized self-doubt that's constantly perpetuated in the workplace. So just to reiterate, anyone who works in the STEM industry, it doesn't matter what their gender is, what their socioeconomic status is, what sexual orientation they identify as, what their intellectual ability is, or what nationality they are, ethnicity, age group, it does not matter. Anyone can feel like this at any point in their career. Imposter syndrome is very common in an industry like the STEM fields. This field in particular attracts a lot of high achievers. It's also a very high pressure, highly competitive career and environment. So when you have a mixture of those type of people in an industry, it's a recipe to perpetuate something like this. There are definitely pockets in the industry within certain disciplines that perpetuate imposter syndrome a lot more than others. I've worked in many industries in the STEM field, one of them being academia. Academia probably triggered my personal imposter syndrome the most in my career. From my experience, it was because the culture itself in academia is very accolade driven. So it was very common for academics to always chase tangible accolades. Like if you weren't collecting degrees like Pokemon or chasing awards, certificates, anything to recognize your skills and your talents, then you're not doing it correctly. That's how I felt academia was like at times in terms of the culture it was so easy to compare yourself to other people. It's really important to be aware. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about this topic in particular on my channel is because women in STEM in particular are a bit more vulnerable to feeling imposter syndrome than other demographics in the field. There are many reasons why women in STEM in particular will most likely feel imposter syndrome compared to our colleagues. One of the reasons is underrepresentation. Because of the biases that women experience in this industry, we still don't have enough representation of women across the different disciplines in STEM, as well as across the different levels of leadership in the industry as well. It's still very common for women like us to walk into a room of powerful people, influential people who are making all of these decisions in the industry and still be the only person in that room that is a woman. So when you walk into a room like this and you don't see yourself represented in the people around you, you can't help but feel like you don't belong. You know, it's kind of like walking into a party and you don't know anyone and there is no one there that looks like you. You kind of second guess why you're there. Why am I the only woman in this room? Why am I the only woman of color in this room? It doesn't matter how welcoming people are for you to share your opinions and your ideas in a room like this. It's really hard to feel like you fit in when you do not see yourself represented. Unfortunately, this is still a common thing in the industry that we see and something that we're trying to overcome. Another reason why women in the STEM industry could potentially feel imposter syndrome is because of stereotyping. Society and social media and the patriarchal norms have really perpetuated a specific stereotype about intelligent women, especially intelligent women who work in this industry. So when you think of a scientist, like a female scientist or a doctor, there might be a certain image in your head, a generalization in your head from what you've seen in the media about who we are and what we should look like and how we should dress and speak and behave. These stereotypes are actually very detrimental to women in this industry because we are placed in a specific box. And so if you do not fit into that box, if you do not look like someone who is intelligent according to the media, then people will start to question your intellect and your abilities as a woman in this industry. It's actually a very common experience for women in the field to have their intellect and their work undermined on a daily basis. Not because women are not intelligent and not brilliant in their own right. A lot of the time, the women who are undermined in the industry are incredibly bright. People just can't fathom that women can take pride in their appearance and be intelligent at the same time, or can have a successful career in the industry but also have extracurricular activities on the outside. Sometimes people don't realize that they subconsciously close doors and opportunities to women who don't fit their comfortability of what an intelligent woman should be like. It actually can become a big issue for women when it comes to progressing in their careers and being recognized for their brilliance. Consistently facing unconscious biases and microaggressions from other people in the industry is another reason why women might feel imposter syndrome in their careers. The truth is, and I can talk about this in another video if you guys want to, let me know in the comments, the STEM industry and the way the system is built was not designed for women to succeed. It actually wasn't designed for any marginalized group to succeed in. We just succeed anyway just because women are that good, you know? If I had $1 for every time I experienced some sort of ism in the field, what I mean by ism is ageism, sexism, racism, all the isms, okay? If I had $1 for every time I experienced one of those in the form of a bias or a microaggression, I'd be a self-made billionaire by now. Being in the industry for this long, it's not for the weak. You have to have a very thick skin when you're in this industry, because if you're a woman, or if you're like me, a woman of color, the journey is a little bit different and the experiences are not always great. It's incredibly exhausting to deal with as a woman, and it definitely makes you question your abilities sometimes when people keep undermining your intelligence and, keep downplaying your work. But again, this is why this topic is so important. Is that if you are a woman but are also someone who identifies as someone from a marginalized group, the imposter syndrome feeling is compounded even more for us. So what I mean by marginalized is you can be a woman, but a woman of color as well. If you're a woman of color, you might feel imposter syndrome at a deeper level because of the racial biases and things that we experience in the field. If you are someone like me who's a first generation anything in the field, you will feel imposter syndrome at a compounded level as well. If you're the first in your family to go to university and get a qualification, if you are the first in your family to become a doctor, if you are the first in your family to become a scientist, if you're the first in your family to become an engineer, mathematician, an astronaut, whatever it is that you are pursuing in your career, being the first to do anything is an incredibly difficult journey. And it's very easy to doubt yourself because you don't have those social networks available to guide you in the right direction. You're basically going into the system blind and doing everything for the first time. A woman who identifies as a different sexual orientation can also feel a compounded level of imposter syndrome. Again, it's all about that representation and the way people are treating you. Or maybe if you're a woman who identifies as someone who is neurodiverse, or might have a specific disability, or might be a carer for another individual. Maybe you came from poverty and didn't come from wealth. The feeling of imposter syndrome is compounded tenfold. I'm a woman in the industry. I'm also a woman of colour, and I'm also a first generation Australian. I was the first in my family to go into an Australian university, finish a postgraduate qualification, to work in academia, to work for government, to work in policy, to start a business and to earn a six-figure income. I also did not come from wealth at all. And so coming into this industry, I've faced imposter syndrome on so many levels. The higher you progress in your career, the less diversity is there. So you can imagine that the rooms I'm stepping into, not only do they not have women in these rooms yet, I'm usually the only woman of colour in the room, usually the first woman of colour who's a first generation Australian in the room, and the first women of colour, first generation Australian who did not come from wealth in the room. It's a very common thing. You can imagine the journey and the feeling of imposter syndrome there. Another factor as to why women might feel imposter syndrome is because of a lack of role models in the industry. There's this really important saying that I came across a long time ago, and the saying goes, people can't be what they can't see. It's very difficult to believe that you are worthy of things and opportunities and successes in the industry when you don't see people who look like yourself and have come from your experiences and backgrounds in those positions of success. It's very hard to visualize yourself in those successful positions, attaining those accolades or whatever success means to you, if you are not seeing people who look like you achieving those things. Before I started my channel, there weren't many women in STEM influencers on YouTube, and I just thought it was so odd because there's so many of us in the industry. Not only could I barely find any women in STEM on these social media platforms, I could barely find anyone who was a woman of color as well. And I was like, this is weird. This is such a big gap in the industry. And that's why I have a channel now, just to try and address that gap. I'm hoping that having a platform and being a woman in this industry, it inspires other women to go into this industry as well, but also to be equipped with all the knowledge that you need to succeed in this industry. There are just some nuances that women need to know about in order to succeed, and that's sort of the gap that I'm trying to bridge. All right, so we've spoken about what imposter syndrome is. We've spoken about who is more likely to experience it in the STEM field. But how do you actually know that you are experiencing imposter syndrome in that moment of your career? The truth is, the signs are a little bit different for everyone, just like the signs of burnout can be different for different people. It really comes down to a lot of intrinsic factors, how you deal with stress, your professional work ethic, your sense of self-awareness and the discipline you work in and all of the things. Some of the signs can include downplaying your achievements. This is something that I see in the field a lot. It actually makes me really sad because I work with a lot of brilliant women in the field who have achieved so many incredible things, and the way they talk about their achievements and downplay it, again, it just makes me so sad. But I think a part of that is attributed to women being conditioned to be humble and to have grace and humility wherever they go. I'm all about humility, having grace and staying humble. But I also believe that when an achievement is achieved and it's rightfully achieved, you can acknowledge that achievement and accept it. It makes me angry sometimes because the amount of time I've wasted in the industry sitting in meetings, talking about achievements of some people in this industry that could have been an email, having these elevated and spoken about, but downplaying the achievement of women who are doing such amazing things. It makes me angry on a daily basis, but we have to push through. Another sign could be overworking yourself to earn some sort of success in your career, while other people are just doing the bare minimum and doing what they need to do to achieve a certain type of success in their career. You're probably going above and beyond to make sure that you are earning your successes in your career. Now, I am notorious for this in the industry, and I think we get a bad name for ourselves in a way, and people don't quite understand why we do it. I know for me personally, and maybe some of you guys can relate to me, I could never go and do the bare minimum to achieve anything in my career. I didn't have that luxury. I believe that if you're a woman, especially a woman of color, you do not have the luxury to do the bare minimum like what some people in the field can get away with. I've had to earn a lot of my successes in the industry. There is no way that I could have just done the bare minimum to achieve what I have achieved. We're held to a different standard compared to other people. I would love to sit there and just do the absolute bare minimum to get to point A to point B, but in my experience, that's not enough for someone like me. So I learned that in order to succeed in this industry, I had to develop my professional work ethic and make it as rigorous as possible. I'm held to a different standard. Another sign could be the fact that you are terrified of failure or you are afraid of making mistakes. So you might take on perfectionist tendencies because you're trying to do everything perfect the first time you do something, so that you're not making mistakes and having to redo the work that you're doing or disappoint anyone or disappoint yourself. I've learned more from my failures and my mistakes in this industry more than any of my achievements put together. It's a human experience to make mistakes. We're not perfect. We weren't designed to be. From all our social conditioning, women have always been told that they have to be perfect. You have to not make mistakes and you have to behave like this and just be this perfect robot that doesn't exist. We're allowed to make mistakes. We are human. And that's something we have to remind ourselves sometimes. Definitely something I have to remind myself too. Another sign that you could be experiencing imposter syndrome in your career is when you find yourself comparing yourself a lot to other people in the industry. I know with the rise of social media, people are now showing their lifestyles on these platforms and they tend to romanticize their lifestyles too. We're not generally posting our lives when we are depressed and crying in a corner. We're usually posting our lives on social media when we're doing nice and happy things. So it definitely creates issues where you think that someone is doing better than you and then you're comparing yourself to them. I think understanding what people are up to in the industry and observing their successes in the industry is not a bad thing. I'm surrounded by a lot of women who are incredibly successful. I love watching them succeed. It actually motivates me to do better and succeed myself. But I think there is a difference between a healthy comparison and a toxic one. When you find that you are comparing yourself in a toxic way, bringing yourself down as a result of maybe not achieving certain things in a certain time frame, that's probably when you need to reevaluate the way you're thinking. Why do we care about imposter syndrome so much? Why is it actually detrimental to us as women and detrimental to our careers if we don't recognize it early and do something about it? One of the reasons is because of burnout. You will feel burnout because your time and your energy is being wasted on these constant thoughts of not being good enough. You're overexerting yourself in the industry, again, maybe to compensate for the fact that you do not believe that you are deserving of things, or people keep undermining your intelligence, so you keep trying to prove yourself. There's a chance that women might not go back into the industry as a result of burnout, or they're not themselves anymore, or they lose their passion for the field, which we don't want because we need women in this field to do all the great things. They might have to take time off as a result of this, which could impact their ability to achieve certain things in their career and can put a stop in their career in a sense. And most importantly, it doesn't allow women to perform at their best in order to be open to the opportunities that are coming through to them. The constant feeling of not being good enough can actually prevent you from growing in your career. If you constantly are faced with microaggressions, or you constantly feel like you're not worthy, you're not enough, you are less likely to put your hand up for opportunities which can impact your ability to grow as a professional. You might turn down opportunities in leadership because you do not feel that you're cut out for the position. You might turn down promotions or job opportunities. You might not speak up in different forums or rooms that require your knowledge and your experience and your perspectives to be shared. These are all things that can happen if you consistently feel imposter syndrome and you're not aware of it, or you're not addressing the issues. Persistent imposter syndrome can be detrimental to your mental and emotional health. We work in this industry for a bigger purpose, for a higher purpose. It's to better humanity on some level. It's incredibly difficult to pursue your purpose and your passions and to show up 100% for other people that you care about when you're not mentally and emotionally there. Imposter syndrome is dangerous over time because it has the ability to negatively impact our self-esteem and mental health. Our mental health is so important in our careers, especially if you're pursuing a career in the STEM industry. We use our minds a lot in this industry. And lastly, if imposter syndrome is not addressed early, it creates a feedback loop where the more you start achieving great things, the worse it feels. It turns into this weird, very toxic psychological loop. It is really important to attribute your successes and stuff in the industry to something positive, not negative, so that whenever you are achieving things, it doesn't feel wrong. How do you overcome imposter syndrome when you are experiencing it? One of the ways you can address imposter syndrome is to make sure that you have awareness of it and awareness of how you experience symptoms, and also understand that it is a very collective experience that all people will experience at some point in their career. Just remember that this feeling that you are feeling has a name. It's actually a phenomenon that's been identified in the industry, and it is something that is constantly being talked about now in the workplace. I know with lots of the conferences and stuff that I've been to in the past few years, imposter syndrome is talked about now more openly, and there is more awareness for this, which is really helpful for women because it's really hard to understand what you're feeling if you don't know what you're feeling. I know for me, when I used to feel it at a young age, before these sorts of topics were being spoken about, I thought I was the only one experiencing this. I didn't think anyone else was. People will experience it no matter who they are in the industry, no matter how much experience they have in the industry. That feeling of self-doubt creeps in all the time. Talk about it. You'd be surprised how many people can resonate with your experience just by talking about it. Imposter syndrome should not be something that people are afraid to talk about. It should not be a taboo topic at all. If there is a story about imposter syndrome you want to share in the comments, please do so. I would like the comment section to be like a collective community archive of, people's experiences, so that when other people watch the video and they read the comments, they know that they're not the only ones who experience this. When topics become taboo, it creates a stigma around it. Stigma is very dangerous because it creates fear in people not to speak about these things. Challenge the negative self-talk. It's so easy to talk negatively to ourselves. It's so easy to talk positively to other people and to downplay our achievements and to just always believe that we are not good enough. But it is so important to change that negativity and changing it into something positive. One of the ways I do this in my personal and professional life is I rewire the way I think about achievements and things that happen in my life. I believe there's always a positive in every experience, no matter how bad it is. It's very easy to believe that when there's something that you really want in life and it doesn't happen for you, that it attributes to something that you're lacking. But I've rewired that thinking in myself. It's more maybe I'm being redirected into something better. I always believe that what's meant for me will always be there for me, and there is nothing that can get in the way of that. Track your wins. Sometimes what I like to do is I like to keep a folder or a spreadsheet, or just I'd like to document all the different achievements that I've achieved in my career so far. Sometimes I go back and look at them whenever I'm feeling a bit demotivated or a bit sad, and I kind of go through those achievements just to remind myself of the different things that I've accomplished in my career. Sometimes we are so busy chasing our accolades and all our successes that we forget to stop and smell the roses sometimes, and we forget that it's not about the wins, it's about the journey and how far you've come. I like to document these things sometimes and look at them because it reminds me of how far I've come as a professional. Redefine competence. In this industry, competence can be attributed to being able to do everything and knowing everything. I dedicated my career to academia. My job in academia was literally to know everything about a specific discipline that I was teaching. And what that job taught me is that I actually don't know everything, and it's okay not to know everything. One of the questions I get asked in my career is, if you don't know something, Angela, what do you say to the students? I say, I don't know. We're not ChatGPT, we're not artificial intelligence. We can't just download all this information. There are always going to be things that we don't know, and rewiring what your definition of competence is really important. Celebrate the small wins in your professional career. This is something that I do and have been doing for many years. It doesn't matter how big or small an accomplishment is in your career. Always celebrate. Do not feel like an idiot for celebrating something like a graduation, getting a HD on an assignment, putting up with the person you don't like at work for another day. There are so many things worth celebrating, and it's always important to take the time to go out and celebrate with the people that you love on the really small achievements. If you always wait for the big achievements to come in life, you might miss the opportunity to celebrate. There is nothing too small or big to be celebrated. Everything is worth celebrating. Seek mentorship and community from your social support systems. I have overcome many moments of doubt in my personal and professional life because I have amazing people around me who are an amazing support system. It's important to have people around you that you know and trust to provide you with the right guidance during these moments and can encourage you to overcome these sorts of doubts that you are feeling about yourself. My social support networks are a mix of different people. Many of them have been in my life for many years, so they understand all the things that I've gone through in my life. They always remind me of the things that I have achieved and always encourage me to push through in those moments. I reach out to them when I need to talk to them and need a sounding board for advice or guidance about how to approach a situation. They always make sure that I'm okay and follow up with me to make sure that I'm doing okay and I'm feeling better. I also reach out to the mentors that I have in the field to also be that sounding board for me from a professional perspective, to guide me in the right direction, or again act as a sounding board for when I've got my doubts. I've got lots of mentors in the field for different things. I can talk about mentorship in another video if you like, let me know. Mentors in the field are really important because they see you through a different professional lens. They usually have a bit of an understanding of your capabilities, your work ethic, and are always great to speak to about your doubts, because especially if they're women in the field, they would have gone through the same experiences as well. It's just being able to talk to someone and sometimes just voicing your feelings and just having someone to say, Angela, you're doing fine. I'm also a mentor in the field as well. When my mentees approach me with their doubts and their issues, I try to be a sounding board for them. So I hope this topic on imposter syndrome was helpful to you in some way. I will provide a few resources in the description below of maybe a few links and other resources that you can look at to learn more about this topic. Please talk about your experiences in the comments. If you have any questions in the comments, let me know. I'll do my best to answer them. If you've got suggestions for other topics for my diary series, please let me know. Let's break the cycle together and, create a community where we're talking openly about these sorts of topics. Do not ever doubt whether you belong in a room full of people or in a discipline or in an industry. I don't believe things happen by chance. I believe everything happens for a reason. The fact that you're there, the fact that that opportunity is being presented to you, the fact that it's showing up in your vicinity means that it's meant for you. You belong there and are worthy of great things just by existing, and that's something that I want you to remember. The fact that you've achieved what you have achieved so far in this industry that was not built for you to succeed, that says a lot about you as a person and how brilliant you are. So please don't forget this, because we need you in the field. I don't want you to leave, okay? We need representation in the field so that we can get more brilliant-minded women in the field as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye! Hey Salceologists, my name is Angela. I am a woman in STEM and have been in the STEM industry for over 15 years. Why am I saying 16? We're adding years every time I say this. 15 years. So in this video, we'll talk a little bit about what impostrum? Why do I keep saying that?